Hello, hello, hello. This is Overlord Bo back with another information video with SAT score. And today we're going to be going over the top 5 worst premium ships to buy in World of Warships. So, have you ever thought, is this ship worth buying? And with this list, it's going to be no. So, make sure to take some notes and study hard on why these ships are the worst ships in the game to buy. So, let's hop up right into it. There's not going to be any particular order. So, first one is going to be the legendary Tiger 59. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, it has a lot of utility. It's great. It's got a super heal. It's got a smoke. It's got a radar. It's got DFA. What does it not have? Guns. It doesn't have guns. It doesn't have a lot of DPM. It has 4 Minotaur guns. So 2 turrets with 2 guns. And even though the guns themselves are accurate, the thing is that it does not have a lot of DPM. So you're able to radar ships. You're able to smoke yourself up to be able to farm, but it takes you so long to be able to do any actual damage. It's actually better for you just to ram the enemy than it is to try to shoot them. This ship desperately needs torpedoes or some kind of reload increase with the meta nowadays with how much stronger there's a lot more stronger tier 8 premiums you can buy, like the Bayard or the Mines. There's just so many of them that this ship is just not on the list at all to buy. This is on your list to not get and hope that you never get this ship at all in your port at all, period. What are your thoughts on this ship, SAT?
So not only is the DPM is low, but it's the British light cruiser, so you only have access to AP. It does get destroyer dispersion, which is great, but this is somewhat offset by her somewhat slow shells. So compared to her closest counterpart, which is the Edinburgh at tier 8, her shells are actually a little bit slower, and her AP salvo she has a lot less alpha per salvo.
Mm-hmm.
So what she's basically is forced to rely on her radar and smoke gimmick. She doesn't get. She's trying to. Her gameplay is to try and clap out the destroyers, but that's made more difficult because of her AP only shells. So even if she traps the destroyers in, they can literally just stay bow in, or if they're already turned out, they just run away.
Yep. And that is the biggest
And
dilemma.
yeah, she can stay safe with her smoke, but then her DPM is not all of that threatening. A lot of it, and without any torpedoes, battleships, if given a chance, they can literally just walk up to you and even ram you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's assuming, of course, they don't just shoot you through the bow and get citadels.
Yep, exactly.
So, yeah, this ship is just really hard. It's a real pain to try and get it to work, but because it's so notorious for its underpoweredness, a lot of people do play here as a challenge. Kind of like basically, if you can make the Tiger 59 work, you can probably make any other ship in the game work as well.
Mm-hmm.
So think of it as a test of skill.
Yep, exactly. So, definitely don't get this ship. All right, so the next ship is going to be a tier 9. It is going to be the Halford. Yeah, this is the first, and I'm hoping only hybrid destroyer in the game, right? So, the guns on the ship, they're okay. Not the best, not the worst. The torpedoes, they're okay. Long reload. But it has an attack aircraft on it for rockets. It does have the American smoke as well, but the purpose of this ship is meant to be more of a support destroyer where you have the smoke for you either smoke up for your team or you use the planes for spotting. And with that upcoming CV change, the whole spotting gimmick of those attack rockets are kind of going away or being made way more difficult. So the Halford already doesn't do a lot of damage. It's more of a support role kind of destroyer. and then they're going to be removing or messing with it. They're not removing, they're making it harder with the spotting for the aircraft. So the Halford already is in a bad spot. And the fact is that when you launch the planes, the enemy can see when the planes pop up in the air. So the moment they launch, they can see exactly where you are. And that's kind of one of the biggest things that destroyers have is concealment. So if you take away, like, oh, well, he's right there. Any torpedoes you have going toward them or anything like that, they're going to instantly start dodging where they saw your planes. So you're not going to be hitting a lot of torpedoes with this ship if you do use the attack aircraft. And overall, it's just like it's not worth the price tag. There's a lot better tier 9 premiums you can just buy. And I'll let SAT Score do his take on the Halford.
So Halford's playstyle is just it clashes with each other. So the so for hybrid aircraft, you want to be spending a decent amount of time in the aircraft and trying to fly.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with destroyers is you need to micromanage it a lot because if something unexpected happens, you don't have the HP or the defense to really survive it. So then you're faced with a dilemma. Do you ditch your aircraft immediately and go back to your ship, therefore wasting your aircraft? Or do you just autopilot away and hope that you just don't die in the process? So that's one of the inherent problems with that playstyle. It's like how do you balance using aircraft and then using a hull that needs to be micromanaged very carefully. The other problem is that in order to get her aircraft, you have to sacrifice a good amount of firepower. So she already has worse firepower than a Fletcher, which is starting to really fall off at tier 9 because of their horrible flight times.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, she also only gets one rack of torpedoes. Granted, you do get 13.5 kilometers, so it is a significant range increase. But the fact that you lose half your torpedo tubes cuts your firepower in half, and that's just not really good. So you still get the US smoke. So essentially, Halford ends up being more of a support destroyer. She works best by laying a smoke for your allies and then launching her planes in order to spot, while she tries to stay safe. Or she could use her hull to bump into destroyers, and then when they get chased off, you use your aircraft to run them down. But overall, she ends up being a very tricky destroyer to use. There are moments where she can shine, but her kit is just so it doesn't synergize with each other, and which makes it a very difficult ship to play at the best. And due to her lack of firepower, she doesn't really have the tools against a smart enemy destroyer when she's ambushed. Like, for example, if you run into a Jutland he can actually do a good amount to you. If you run into a black, well, he out DPMs you while he hides in smoke.
Mm-hmm.
If you run into like a Katsonis, that's kind of GG. So, it's a really risky play style if you want to use all of her tools, but not really that big of a payoff most of the time. So that's why I don't think Halford's a really good ship. Just too hard to play, and the payoff is not really worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. So for number 3, the third ship on this list is going to be the Z-44. That is going to be the tier 9 German destroyer. This ship is a really weird hybrid for the Germans. It's more like Wargaming was like, hey, let's have a ship that, well, it's German, right? So the German destroyer, it doesn't have the good guns. It has really poor guns, but it has good torpedoes. So it's more of like, no, you don't have any hydro. The guns are meh, and it has decent torpedoes. So it's a really poor, like the way the ship is designed, it's more like, it's like a torpedo torpedo design, sorry, torp launcher for the Germans, which it just doesn't fit very well with this kind of ship. Like like I don't know. Like normally it should have the hydro, it should have the better guns, but it just doesn't do a very good job doing either of the roles. Now the reload of the torpedoes are nice at 72 seconds, but there are better torpedo boats that you can get at tier 9, like the Jaeger, which kind of just outshine and outperform this ship. So I don't recommend the Z44 at all, and I'll let SAT Score explain his side.
Z44 is kind of a identity crisis ship. It's a German, so on the surface, as Bo said, you would think she would have hydro. But no, she is the only German destroyer, well, at least for starting at tier 5, that, well, the normal kind of destroyer that does not have the hydro. And that's a big problem because that's a critical tool that other destroyers have over her, at least the Z46. So what she does get is 12-kilometer range torpedoes and pretty good reload. Don't get me wrong, that is powerful, but her surface concealment, I believe, is 5.9-ish, which is on the higher end of the tier 9 destroyers. And while her torpedoes are fine, she doesn't have the secondary role of spotting that the Japanese destroyers and the Jaeger has. So that is a critical downside for a torpedo destroyer because her firepower is not great. Any gunboat destroyer can easily just run her down. You have to get lucky with your torpedoes in order to stand a chance. Things like Fletcher, the Jutland, even sometimes the enemy Yugumo can just run and gun you down, which is not great. If they can gun you down, at the very least, they can zone you out. And if you're being zoned out as a torpedo destroyer, that means your torpedoes will take longer to reach their target, giving them more time to evade and more likely to find a gap in your spreads. So the only compensation at that point is that Z44's guns can penetrate 32 millimeters of armor. The HE can. So, but that's not really that much in the grand scheme of things. She's mostly relying on her torpedo to do the damage, but because of her relatively high concealment for a torpedo destroyer, she just ends up being outclassed compared to the other options. And it's a complete insult that she is also, while she's being sold for coal, a better ship exists in the form of Jaeger. Just spam out the 12-kilometer super fast torpedoes while having a pretty good 5.4 concealment and just literally running around the battlefield. Like, if someone wants a torpedo destroyer, I'd recommend Jaeger 10 out of 10. There's almost no reason to ever take the Z44, unfortunately.
All right, so the number 4 ship on this list is going to be the Vanguard. So the Vanguard probably has to be one of the worst tier 8 battleships in the game. First, the 381 millimeter guns. They are very poor performance. AP isn't that great. HE isn't that great either. The gun angles are also absolutely terrible, where you have to show so much side to use it, to where if you're trying to use all 4 guns, you're going to be very easily citadeled. It's not over. It's a very bad ship. Survivability on the ship is very poor. It does have nice armor against HE spam with 32 millimeters, which is really nice for tier 8. But overall, with the AP, the ship is very weak. The guns do not perform very well. Anti-air is okay. Maneuverability, it's okay speed for tier 8 with being 31.5. Concealment's also okay, but overall, the gun performance is really poor on this ship, and the fact you have to show so much side on the ship really puts it at a giant disadvantage when dealing with tier 9 and tier 10 matchmaking, due to how those battleships have better pen and have better guns than the tier 8s. So overall, would just say do not buy this ship. there are better options out there for you at tier 8. And I'll let SAT score say his side for the Vanguard.
Vanguard is kind of a victim of just being mediocre enough a lot of things in areas where she really should not be. It's just for some reason the devs didn't give her any. Granted, she was a relatively early ship, like she came before the British battlecruiser line, but for some reason the devs just didn't give her anything good to play with. About the best you can give is the rudder shift time of 9.7 seconds, which is great for a battleship, and her turning radius is not bad, but that's not enough to be considered good for a battleship. As Bo said, her firepower is not that great. Her guns are literally the same as the Queen Elizabeth, which is a tier 6 battleship. And worse, well, not worse, but it's not helped by the fact that her dispersion is actually the same as other ships. So, given that she is one of the final battleships, the final battleship to see service, you would think that advances in fire control system would inspire something similar. Like, okay, since she probably had advanced fire control system, she would have more accuracy than your typical battleship. But that is not really the case for some reason. It's like It's like literally 2 or 3% better than other battleships at best. She does get 2.0 Sigma, but it's just not enough, and it definitely does not compensate for her horrible firing angles. Her citadel is raised, which creates a problem because if you want to use all of your guns, you have to show broadside, and that turn means you're more likely to get clapped out by citadels if the battleship times their shots properly. Her armor is also not really good for a battleship. It's your typical British armor scheme, which is nothing. She does have slightly better repair party to compensate, and she repairs more heals. She repairs more per heal and has a better citadel repair, but that's not enough to compensate.
Yeah, so overall, no. For this ship, just no. Now, before we have the final ship on what ship not to buy, our honorable mention is going to be the Verberus Unitas. That little pocket battleship at tier 5. It just, I don't know how to explain this one, SAT. How would you explain the Verberus Unitas?
So, for some reason, Wargaming decided to give her all the concealment in the world for a battleship, and then they forgot to make her good in anything else. Oh, and by the way, there's a good amount of carriers at tier 6, so good luck. So yeah, you don't even get to use your concealment half the time in a small map.
Yeah, that is quite unfortunate for the Verberus Unitas. So, if you're wondering what ships are just better, the Agnicourt is way better and a lot more fun to play rather than this ship.
Unitas also doesn't have that much HP. It's like 36,000, and well, for example, New York is almost 50,000. 35,000 is like literally almost. It feels like it's almost a cruiser at times. And I think it actually can face tier 7 cruisers that have more HP. It can.
That's crazy.
So yeah, its HP pool is so bad that some tier 7 cruisers like the Miyoko can actually has more HP.
Yeah, that's not good.
It does turn really well though, but I think that's about the most you can say for this ship.
Yeah. So, the final ship on this list is going to be one of the worst cruisers in the game, if you can even call it that, the Toulon. Now, the Toulon has very little armor it's pretty much like a light cruiser armor. Not very much. Sorry, it has heavy cruiser armor with a 170mm plate of armor for the Citadel. But it has 8 305mm guns with a 28-second reload. A cruiser with battleship reload guns at tier 7. It doesn't have a lot of HP. That's 42,500. Actually, you know what? Take that back. It's a pretty decent amount of HP, but overall, the ship is very squishy, and the gun angles are very bad. So if you try kiting with it, you're pretty much showing all of your side anyway when you're trying to shoot the 2 front turrets. And overall, it's just, I don't know what they were thinking designing this. You do get a lot of utility with the hydro, engine boost, fighter, and a nice heal. And overall, and the guns, when they do hit, they do very well. But that is a 28-second reload. So while you're sitting there reloading, you're getting peppered farm by destroyers, cruisers, you name it. And battleships will just eat you alive in Citadel your bow or Citadel on your side really easily. You're just an AP magnet for battleships and an HE magnet for everything else. So the Toulon on pretty much the worst premium ship to get in World of Warships for me personally. But I'll let SAT Score say his side for today.
So the design of Toulon, it's trying to be a tanky, it's trying to follow the Marseille playstyle of being a relatively fast battle cruiser that can get to enemy sides and then punish them with AP. What makes the Marseille line work is that not only do they have powerful AP, but they have the speed boost and they have the reload booster to give them that burst of firepower when they do get the enemy's broadside. Unfortunately, Toulon lacks that critical last part. It does not get any reload booster. So while it still has the battlecruiser accuracy and it does have repair party and compared to other tier 7 cruisers, it actually doesn't die in one hit. The firepower part is just absolutely horrible. You have none of the upsides of the battleships. You have literally almost half the firepower for a battleship, but none of the upsides.
Yeah.
So even if you do get into a position where an enemy battleship shows you broadside, you're still gambling on the fact that your guns will actually hit the target and not bounce off the belt or anything, or just completely miss.
Yep.
And that's just against battleships. Against the destroyers, yeah, you're gonna have to get lucky to get even more than 2 or 3k per salvo, and that's literally every 30 seconds or so. So destroyers have no problems like gunning you. Granted, it'll take a while, but they can still burn you down. Cruisers, if you ambush them, you still have a good chance of your salvo doing nothing because of how French AP sometimes work. So once you miss your first crucial shot, well, if you hit it, that's great. If you miss it, well, now he's angry and now he's going to burn you down and punish you in return. So Toulon's playstyle. So Toulon is like basically the failed version of the Marseille. It just doesn't have the firepower to back up its durability, which is a complete shame because it is one of the few tier 7 tanky cruisers. But it just, in this case, it just can't get any good use out of it. You just may as well play a battleship.
Yep. So that is going to be it. Let us know in the comments down below your own list of ships that you think are the worst to buy in World of Warships. And make sure to comment as well what you think of this list. But this is Overlord Bo and SAT Score. Thank y'all for watching and see you all in the next video.